correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome back to the How We Roll Gaming podcast, everybody. I'm here with Robert this time. Last time, Nick and I were Robertless. And this time, Robert and I are Nickless.
Yes, we interchanged a little bit, but I'm glad to be back.
Yes. And, you know, he said that we're okay to say this. We make a lot of fun of him about, the whole
Squirrel
situation. But a squirrel or two have actually gotten into his house again. And so he's trapping them, and he's just had a hell of a week. So
Yes, so we told him, take the time, take a break. You don't need to do this right now. You got enough on your plate.
Yep, take care of the
squirrel.
Yeah.
But so we will handle our topic tonight just fine ourselves.
Indeed. But before we dive into that subject, we want to let you know that one of the other great shows on the D20 Radio Network,
I Should Roll, is an actual play podcast set in the Mass Effect universe using a homebrew system that's kind of a mix of D&D 5e, Blades in the Dark, Fate, and some other mechanics thrown in for good measure. They currently have 2 long-form campaigns running. Ride of the Valkyrie, which is set in 2184, and Dangers, set in 2189.
Yes, you can find more information on their site, ishouldroll.com, and get the podcast through your preferred platform.
And of course, we will have links in the notes.
Yes, we will. But now, on to our topic.
Now, I will not lie, I kind of poached this topic from the Discord server of our friend Nate over at Tabletop Empire with his blessing. I poached the topic with his blessing. Someone was asking, so what do you do with social encounters so that you're not just, rolling dice and saying, okay, you convinced this person of something, now move on. How do you make a social encounter actually engaging?
Yes, because in an RPG, basically is 50-50 in a story. You have combat encounters, but you also have social encounters. Depending on the universe, social can sometimes trump combat can sometimes trump social, but social encounters are still important to any good story.
Yep. And so I spoke to Nate and I was like, hey, you said that this is going to be a good idea for a video for Tabletop Empire, but since you'll be focused exclusively on the Star Wars and maybe the Genesis aspect of that, and we discuss games more in general, do you mind if we discuss it too? And he said, go for it. It's going to be 6 months to a year before I can get to it with the new actual play coming up and the other videos I have that I'm working on. So go for it. So thank you, Nate.
Yes, thank you, Nate.
Thank you, Nate. So I'm glad that you're here for this one, Robert, because you have an uncanny knack with social characters.
Yes, thank you. And it actually surprised me as well, as in the beginning, before I got into this and some other stuff in my life, I was a very introverted person. I would be the one that goes in, maybe sits for an hour, but then the emotional battery is done and I just stop engaging or leave.
Yeah, and I think it's not to stereotype, but I think it's fair to say that there's going to be a lot of overlap in the RPG space of players who are introverts or have some degree of social anxiety, that being that talky talk person isn't them, but that's part of why they like playing characters like that in an RPG.
Exactly. I can only speak from my experience. But I find when you're in a group with people that know you, you know they won't make fun of you or mock you unless it's in a playful manner like we do with Nick, then you have more freedom to play the role as it is. Like when I make a character and I make them a talker, I want to get into how their personality is, how do they act, and when I may not be able to do this in the real world, I can pretend to be this person in this universe and go all hammy and crazy and just treat it like a like we like to joke that Ian McDermott, who plays Palpatine, loves to just eat the scenery. So I try to
Yes.
channel my inner Palpatine and eat the scenery.
Do it. Do it.
Yes.
Now, one thing that you have to do too is you have to make social encounters fun and engaging. Not
Yeah.
just that roll once, okay, you convince them, move on.
Yes, because that's no fun because in real life, when has anyone been convinced by anything in just one go?
Right, exactly.
Ever.
And so I've been pulling as we've been prepping for this episode inspiration from our friends, not just at Tabletop Empire, but I was listening to a recent episode of Me and Steve Talk RPGs, and they were talking about not social encounters, but they were talking about failure being quote unquote gray was the title of the episode,
Ah,
where where you you roll for something, whether you succeed in the role or not, you're going to succeed in the task.
that
But
is interesting.
but if it's a failure, if you don't hit your target number or if it's a failure or what have you, yes, you still succeed in the task, but not in the way that you intended or expected.
Yes, and as we've always talked about, some of the best things that happens in a story come from a failure in a dice roll, because then the DM basically has carte blanche to turn this however he wants to.
And so what that had me thinking of was how successful you are determines the nature of your success.
Yes, and I'm gonna call back to the Genesis system. I really like how they have okay, you can succeed, but you can have varying degrees of success, or even you can succeed, but something goes horribly wrong in the process, or
Right.
vice versa. You fail, but something really good happens, or you fail and something really, really bad happens.
And even in that narrative dice system for Genesis and Star Wars, there are occasions where, so my philosophy for making players roll is there shouldn't be a roll if failure isn't not just an option, but interesting.
Yes, so it's
And so with those social checks, with those social encounters, there may be a situation where if they fail the social encounter, then the adventure
yeah,
stops dead.
like they get stonewalled basically. It's like, well, you failed.
And so you don't want to do that, but you still want there to be possibilities there. So you have them roll. So even in that narrative dice system, if you get a failure, I would say perhaps they still succeed in what they're trying to do. Like, let's say they're trying to charm or deceive someone who has a vital piece of information that's going to lead them on to the next leg of the adventure. If they fail, they still get information from that person. They might even still get the right information. But if they failed, they didn't charm or deceive them. So, as the GM, they still get to that next leg of the adventure. They're saying, hey, we don't know where NPC the hut is, but we need to get to NPC the hut. Well, this person is talking to them. They do the social check. They roll their charm. They roll their deception. They fail. The person
But
that they're talking to still tells them, oh, PC the hut, he's in the palace up on the cliffside up there, which is where NPC the hut really is. But after the players leave, he alerts NPC the hut that they're coming.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, boss, they're coming. You might want to get ready
So
for it.
so they encounter resistance when they get up there, and that's the consequence of the failure. Not that they didn't get the information that they needed, but because they're going to encounter resistance when they
Yeah.
get there.
Yes. Or an alternative is like, well, they fail in their charm and deception. So this species basically does stonewall and be like, yeah, go away. But maybe someone else, say they're in like a seedy bar, maybe someone else, maybe a rival of NPC the Hut's like, oh, you want to find NPC the Hut? I know where he is. I want to take him down too. Let me tell you about this. Maybe even a way you can get to him.
Right. So there's different ways to do that. And also, you might convince them of whatever you're trying to convince them of, but does that mean that they give you everything
No, of
if you
course
fail the
not. I
role?
mean, if you meet someone once, you're not going to spill all your deepest, darkest secrets, no matter how much you like them.
Right. It could be a case of you're trying to get that information out of that person. You could even succeed, but if it's not a huge success, they tell you, "Oh, NPC the hut is in the palace up on the cliffside." What they don't tell you is that there is a trained guard rancor guarding the gates and a garrison of mercenaries inside to take care of unexpected visitors.
Yes, because they'd be like, okay, I'll tell you, but I'm also not going to risk my skin if he ever finds out I told you anything. So I'm sort of praying that the guards deal with you and this never gets back to me.
Now, one thing that I don't do it as much as I would like to do, that I do as a GM, try to do to make social encounters fun and engaging when I know a social encounter is inevitable or I'm trying to steer my players towards a social encounter. I like to come up with some dialogue and decision trees for myself
Yes, very much as well.
because I can't always, I was in speech and theater in high school. I took a group improv competition at speech tournaments, but there are times that for the life of me, I cannot come up with the NPC's side of the conversation. So if
I have been there very much so, especially when I run Cyberpunk and you say something, I was like, I had never thought of that. Yes, it's Z.
so yeah, I try to, I obviously I can't plot out the entire exchange because I don't know what you as the players are going to say. But
Yes,
what I can do is kind of come up with a decision tree with some phrases and things like that peppered in there that I can pull from when I'm playing that
yes.
NPC that you're talking to.
Or what I do at times, especially if you're behind the screen running the game, is that maybe I do decision trees, but I also think, okay, I've made this character. What's their personality? How do they act? Are they more standoffish? Are they honestly blunt? Do they like to dance around the subject? Are they going to intentionally try to mislead you? So through a conversation, I can still think, okay, this person is intentionally wants to mislead people. So he's going to answer you, but he's going to push you in a direction where he knows is away from the objective, but can still open opportunities to get you back on track.
Yep. And that's where just the way my brain works, you know, and people that have been listening for a while have probably picked up that when I come up with a PC or an NPC, a lot of times I like to cast that NPC or cast that
Yes.
character, regardless of whether it's a PC or an NPC. And if I'm casting an actor, I generally have a particular role that that actor was in mind. And that kind of helps me inform how the character is going to act in response. Like in Far Orbit Project, that vice admiral whose
Yes.
Star Destroyer you all damn near actually stole.
That man who just has to have paranoid schizophrenia. Have all the stuff
Well,
he has.
early on, when Nick and I were not when we were planning the campaign, but when we knew that you were all dead set on trying to capture his Star Destroyer, I was looking at Nick and we were planning everything out, and I was like, Ricardo Montalban plays this admiral, and he's kind of like Khan. He's not Mr. Rourke. He's Khan in Wrath of Khan, and he's like, I can see it. I can see it. So that's why I was doing the bad Ricardo Montalban impression whenever I spoke for him. But that also informed how he interacted with you all, even though it was never face to face. It was all through comms. That's that's why he interacted with all of you the way that he did.
Yes. And though at the time we were basically like, oh, come on. It's like, who is this guy? But now we know for the future, it's like, yeah, we got to watch out for this guy. He just loves booby trapping his own places to like the nth degree.
Yep. And in Walking Dead, when we were coming up with the NPC group that is attached to the main party's group, the two of those NPCs that were most fleshed out were uh, Dolores, the old woman who ran the gated
Mhm.
community that you were from, because all of a sudden I was like, this is Mrs. Landingham from the West Wing. And the politician, Elijah Flores, I was like, oh, and this is Jimmy Smits as Matt Santos from the West Wing, but not a benevolent Matt Santos. And so that's why those two are the most fleshed out, because I have their voices in my head.
Yes, which is kind of ironic as we only have interacted mostly with Elijah. Doris has been put in administration and we've never touched her again.
Well, and that's partly because as you all got into the Las Vegas Strip, it made sense for them to split everybody up and put them where they will benefit the society most.
Oh yeah, by no means am I saying it was a bad decision. And truth be told, Yothi, the NPC or PC player Yothi, was the one who was closest to Dolores, and once he died, there wasn't really someone who was that close to Doris anymore.
Yep, it might be time to go back and revise the NPC group that is quote unquote tied to the PC group.
True, because my character still has Ed, but he really needs to speak to Ed because Ed's been kind of in the background. We've
Yep.
talked about others, but I need my eye patch dude back. I need my bro back.
But what else? I know that sometimes in Cyberpunk we do run into a lot of social interactions, because those are the calm before the storm, before you throw the kitchen sink at us when we get to combat. And that's no fault of yours. That's not a complaint like you were saying about the Admiral or anything else. That's not a complaint. It's just the nature of cyberpunk.
Yes, very much true. There's no real peace. There's just silence before you get into the next gunfight.
Yes.
And so I just like to think the big thing about Cyberpunk is, especially in the book, it says it's not a linear campaign in a sense. You can make linear campaigns through it, but it's basically a sandbox survival game. Only instead of in a jungle, you're in an urban city just trying to pay rent. So you got to think of the people you'll encounter. It'd be people offering you jobs. It could just be innocent bystanders. It could be your neighbor, your chill neighbor next door. It could be the crazy homeless guy who eats hot dogs and stares at you. All of it is just like, what do you expect in a cyberpunk city? And then, yes, Cyberpunk 2077 really helped me. I would just sometimes just walk around and see what people were doing in their spare time. It's like, okay, that guy's doing that. They're just sitting over there. This story was pretty nice. No, there's the flaming crotch guy. Just like, what do you
Let
expect to see in a dystopian cyberpunk setting? Then I just run with it. I try to give, like I said, I give my NPCs personalities, especially the fixers who the crew deals with. There's Marcos, who's more like chill, gives you the jobs, let you handle it. While their new fixer that they met, Callista, is gonna, spoiler alert, be more suave and ethereal and be like, oh yeah, yeah, sure, sure. And I need you to do this. But she's also down to earth that she's in a small community. That's gonna be fleshed out later as she'll give jobs, but she's also a layer of trust you got to get to her before she starts opening up.
Yep, yep. And I do kind of the same thing with Walking Dead, although with Walking Dead, it's hard for me to come up with those decision and dialogue trees because it has ended up being so much a sandbox
Very,
that
very true. And I've
that
found that you silently giving us permission to play just regular NPCs just out in the wild has also helped as well because we just make up our own personalities and the conversation just flows.
and then I take notes. It's like, okay, I liked this NPC and this is their personality. Okay, let me file them away for later.
Yeah, just another thing is you're making this story as a group, so by all means let your players give your NPCs personalities and you're just like, "Oh, done, perfect. Now I know how that person acts and what they would say in a situation."
And my my Star Wars Rebel Yell campaign, the one with the rock band, you've sat in on playing one of the attached NPCs, but 95% of that campaign is social encounters. It's built around basically social encounters, both small and large,
Yeah, because
because
you're a rock band. You may be rebels, but you're not rebels.
at least not currently they aren't.
Yeah, you're just
And
rebels.
yeah, and the mechanic that I made up for their performances is basically a skill challenge of a series of social checks that they have to make. It's a series of social checks making up a single social encounter that they have to reach X number of total successes before Y number of failed checks.
Yes, and
And
that's very
they have
effective
to
in what you're going for.
explain what they're doing that contributes to that large social check. So for instance, Nick is the stagehand and pyrotechnics expert and roadie kind of all rolled into one. And so Nick's character's contributions might not come from social skills. They usually come from mechanics checks for setting up the equipment and the pyro.
Yes, or how
And
Stephanie's character is the singer, so she's more of the charm person. While
well, and I actually the way I wrote those up, she has options. It
yes,
depend it depends on the type of song that she's performing and what kind of reaction she's trying to elicit from the audience. Is it charm? Is it a happy peppy song that she's trying to charm the audience onto her side? Or is it a song where she is trying to deceive them into having a particular reaction to the lyrics and the music?
yes,
It can even be you haven't been in a while, so you know how Dan's Aminin
yeah.
bouncer?
The security guard.
Yep. He got up on stage before one of their shows and just started doing ragecore screaming and did it as coercion and
Or next,
succeeded because he got the crowd on his side. So It could be coercion for the singing.
Yep, and that definitely works, especially with some styles of music.
And Lauren plays the guitar, or Star Wars equivalent of guitar in the band. Similar charm, deception. What are they trying to evoke by the playing?
Yeah, and then Betsy character is the manager, so it could be negotiation, leadership, some type of knowledge skill for organization. It's like getting everything
Yep.
set up.
Yep. And she runs into having to do a lot of social checks with the other player characters too.
Yes, because that's a thing. It's like it doesn't have to be PC, NPC. Some of our best social encounters have been PC to PC, especially as I'm going to fall back on again. Walking Dead, when my characters and Dante's characters always talk, there's always a semblance of older elder talking to younger PC, and they're both butting heads, but also have mutual respect. So there's this back and forth. Like he has his own, his character has his own ideals, my character has his own ideals, and it just gets to a point where it's like we're trying to give ourselves that one last line before we walk off dramatically, as we say.
Yep. And in situations like that, as a GM, I let the two of you play it out. And then if there comes a point that I think, okay, I want mechanically or let me rephrase that. I want the outcome of this to be based on the mechanics. Yes, the two of you are role playing beautifully and you know your characters, but A, so that we can actually get some dice rolling,
Yes.
and B, there might be an outcome that I see based on the mechanics, whether it's a pass or fail, at which point I'll tell one of you to make a check and make it an opposed check.
Yes. And yeah, especially in that case, sometimes, like Daryl said, if there's a place where you're like, okay, I do need a roll, that's fine. But other times you can just let it run and the social encounter builds itself and you got plenty of stuff you can use down the road.
Yep. Now, going back to our old favorite of Star Wars, there are some talents that go along with social skills that
Mm,
are frankly broken
yes.
that you've
Intimidating
taken.
is broken. Scathing tirade was homebrewed fixed. And
Yes.
then,
So part of what I think is broken, and we've explained this
mhm,
amongst ourselves, but we'll explain it for the audience, is scathing tirade allows the person with that talent to roll a set, and I think it's what, a two difficulty,
yeah, average, two purple. Mhm.
two difficulty uh, social check, and if they succeed, successes inflict strain upon the targets.
Yes, and in Star Wars, when your strain reaches your threshold, you basically pass out.
You pass out, or you can't function.
Yeah, or you can't function. You're
And
like sitting there, like, "Oh, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it."
now the problem there is that it's a set difficulty, and it's pretty easy difficulty.
Yes, and
And the
it's
more advanced the character becomes, the easier it is to overcome that. And the way I always jokingly phrase it is you can take out enemies by peppering them with yo mama jokes.
yes, and like he says in the higher tiers, because usually scathing thyroid is an action, but you can get it to a place where it can be done as a maneuver, and you're like two maneuvers a turn, so you could scathing thyroid twice, and
And
when
then
my
do it as an
talker,
action.
yes, you could do it three times, and my character who is a talker with a lot of coercion, it would be like two bad dice versus like six or seven good dice. Even better when I actually play it out, and if I do really good, Daryl's like, okay, get this many boosts. So it'd be like
Yep.
it could be like 7 to 12 dice versus two,
Right.
to the
So
point where
what
I knocked out like four like mid-tier antagonists in one go.
And so what we have done to homebrew that is, if it is being used actively, more or less as a weapon against another character, being that it's a social check rather than that set difficulty, it's an opposed check.
Yes, so the difficulty depends on that person's basically mental discipline and fortitude.
Yeah.
Where some
And
people are
so,
going to have that 2 dice, some people are going to have like four really bad dice you got to fight against.
yep, I want you to try using your scathing tirade. We're going to bring in Thrawn, and you're going to have to scathing tirade Thrawn.
Ooh, that's such a challenge. He's got like 5 red.
Something like that, yes.
Discipline.
Scathing tirade the Emperor.
I'd be electrocuted.
Well, that was quite entertaining.
Yeah, it's like, you know who you're talking to. I invented that. Have you seen my work with Maul?
Oh, Maul. Oh, that was good.
Yes, it was very good. 2
The
episodes.
first 2 episodes were good. Anyway, back on track. But yeah, you don't want to. You want social encounters to be fun. You want social encounters to be engaging. You, like any other encounter, you don't want them to be lopsided.
Exactly. You do not want entirely one-sided where either an NPC is talking too much, PC is talking too much, or you're just hitting a wall. Like, you're never going to convince this person of anything.
Yeah, or in terms of the mechanics, you also don't want it to be too lopsided. If let's say you're doing just plain old D&D 5e, you want it to be a challenge worth actually rolling for if you're going to make the player roll. And so, if they have to get better than like a 3 or a 4 or a 5 on their D20 in D&D, the
What's the
odds are
point?
they're going to do it. Yes, it is possible. It is statistically possible for them to fail, but odds are they won't. At which point we cycle back to what Steve and Steve were talking about. If you still want them to roll, that roll isn't to see whether or not they're actually going to succeed. It's
It's how
going to
good they
see
succeed.
how well they succeed, and are there other factors in play with their success.
Yes. That's why I like how, especially like how some systems will be like, okay, there are simple and everyday tasks. Like, anyone can do it. You don't need a role. That can work in social encounters too. You don't need a role to talk to someone. You don't need a role to buy from a convenience store. You don't need a role to tell the high guard in the bathroom to just pass out. You don't need to do any of that.
Yeah. Now, I like this convenience store example because it it kind of puts me in the mind of the entire difficulty system for what Nick and I were talking about last time, which is Star Trek Adventures. The difficulty ranges from 0 to 5 on
Mhm.
any tasks. And a 0 is like what you were just saying. It's a task that you don't need to roll. It's an action that you don't need to roll for. It's buying a candy bar from the guy at the convenience store. Now, that can become an actual check if you're trying to deceive the guy at the convenience store. Oh, my dad's out pumping gas on that pump right out there. He's going to take care of this when he comes in.
Yeah. Or ply him with either another deception or even a charm check if it's true. It's like, look, I haven't eaten in 3 days. I really don't have
Yeah.
any money, but I'm starving, man. Please just let me have this bar.
Yeah. So at that point, and in this case, whether or not you get that candy bar, it's not necessarily going to be a huge consequence if you pass or fail. But that's maybe something worth rolling.
Yes. And then there are the harder checks where you're like, trying to convince, say you were speeding. Now you got to convince a police officer to let you off with a warning and not a ticket. Or worse, you need to get this done because you don't want him to know what you have in the trunk. So you don't want to rouse
Right.
any suspicions.
Right. At that point, you you roll over to your charm because I don't want to give him any reason to think that there's anything going on. I want him to, you know what? He's going to give me a ticket. I'm in a stolen car with a body in the trunk anyway. I don't want him to look too closely. Give me the ticket.
Yes, I'm going to be the model citizen. Let him do his job. Hands on
10 and
three and not
2.
10 and 2, and just like, yep, sure, officer. You see my
Yes,
hands?
sir.
Not
Yes,
not doing
sir.
anything. You have a great day, sir. I'm so happy you caught me.
And in that case, your ID is probably fake anyway. So you want him to go on about his business so that you can get out of there. Now, something we touched on at the beginning that I think is really important for us to talk about is those players who are introverted or socially awkward, who are playing talky or face characters because that's not them, and so they want to kind of role play that. They want to live that fantasy since it's not them.
Yes.
Just like none of us are smugglers in outer space or barbarians or what. So we're playing characters that were not in real
Or
life.
suave con men that can get you to do anything.
Exactly. So the first thing that I try to keep in mind is I know that those players exist because there are times that I am that player. There are definitely times that I am that player. So you don't want to penalize them if they can't come up with a great speech or interaction on the spot.
Yeah, don't be like doing like a GM that's like, okay, you're trying to convince him. Convince me.
Right. Now, I will say, from time to time if we hit something that's a social encounter, I'll be like, "Okay, what's your pitch?"
Yes, and
Sell me on it.
I'll be like, okay, how do you do this? Because they say I charm him or I try to deceive him. I'll say, okay, what do you say? Because I'm one of
Right.
those like, don't just say you're going to do it and roll. It's like, no, tell me what you're going to do. That can help me both decide the difficulty for it, but also it's not just I convince him. I got a 20. It's like, okay, but what are you convincing him to do?
Right. Now, I've been in spots as a player where, I am just, low ebb mentally
Yes.
that session. And I think it's been in one or two of your games once or twice that I have just said, "Robert, my battery is low today. I can't think of exactly what my character is saying, but this is the approach that I'm taking. I'm going to appeal to their sense of honor and duty. I'm going to approach it from the angle of, well, I am here to do this and I need you to let me through so that I can, because it's what I am supposed to do. And then I'm going to appeal to their conscience by saying, if you don't let me, this horrible thing is going to happen, or something like that.
Yes. And I'll be
I
like,
can't,
okay. And then I'm like, okay, what is the NPC like? Is he an actual like honorable person who's just trying to do his job, or is he like a black-hearted jerk who just is in it for the money? That can determine how difficult it's gonna be. But I don't be like, no, Daryl, you have to actually talk to him. But I'm like, okay, you're describing what you want to do, how you're trying to affect him, and that as a GM is like, okay, I've got a difficulty in mind. Roll.
yep. And then I roll. And then, so that you don't want to penalize them when they can't do that. Hell, there are times when we're recording this podcast that I suddenly just lock up and I'm like, I don't know what to say. so
Me too.
so it happens, and it doesn't even have to be that introverted or socially awkward player. It could be an extrovert who is a social butterfly who just the situation that you as the GM have put in front of them, they're like, I have no real frame of reference for this. I don't know what this character would say in
Yeah.
this
Or it's just like,
instance.
you've caught me off guard. I tell him a joke.
Yeah. So let them give you a description of the approach that they're trying to take, how they want to approach it, and go from there. Don't make them come up with a whole, Aaron Sorkin level bit of dialogue
Yeah,
that
like you said, we're not part of an improv club that we're going to be graded on how well we improv,
yeah.
which means also it never hurts as a GM to say, okay, gang, and we're going to have this session next week. I'm going to tell you it's going to favor heavily on the social side. So if you can think on how your characters may act in this situation, that'd be great to give you a frame of mind.
Yep. Let them know that there's going to be a social encounter. Encourage them to maybe come up with something ahead of time. Don't punish them still, though, if they can't or don't.
Yes, because even setting the scene can tell them maybe something they can do besides talking. Like, you're going to a gala, a very high, preppy, noble gala. So, gotta dress up, but there's going to be plenty of rich food, a lot of rich people that if you're the talker, you can try and con, or if you're a thief, you can just start going around and pickpocketing, or maybe you're there to make alliances or just protect someone, so you're just scanning the room. That's still a social encounter, but like Daryl does in his Rebel Yell game, it's just you can find other things to do that doesn't involve you talking to someone.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that if it's a large event like that, then one of the things that could occur is that the game may be heavy on shenanigans, kind of like our Jewel of
Every
Yavin mini campaign that,
like our every campaign.
well, yeah, but we in Nick's Jewel of Yavin mini campaign for Star Wars when he ran that, we did end up at a fancy party. We were at an auction, and I was basically Bugs Bunny,
Yeah, and I was
and
just an adrenaline junkie for going fast in cars.
I but I mean I was practically literally Bugs Bunny. I was Jackson, the green humanoid rabbit that George Lucas hates from the early Marvel Star Wars comics, and I leaned into the Bugs Bunny of it all, and at that party I dressed in clothes like Lando's, and I tied a picture of Lando's face over my face, and I walked around doing a bad Billy D. Williams impression, but I rolled deception
And it worked.
and it worked. So I just got to have fun walking around doing a bad Lando impression as Jackson, and everyone at the gala thought I was Lando.
Yes, or my character who's an Ewok who I've labeled the adrenaline junkie, so he wants to get the fastest to A to B, even if it's just for a goal. It's like, hey, we need people to bet high. Who has a lot of money? Oh, that guy. But I know that guy doesn't like that guy, and he also likes this other person who doesn't like that guy. So my character, while they're thinking of what to do to convince him, I just literally go up, steal the other guy's data pad, give it to the other guy, and be like, you bid. And he's like, oh yeah, yeah. But and then my character's response is like, oh yeah, because my character's like, okay, you need him to bet. Okay, I'll give him what he needs to bet, and then you just do it. Why are we wasting time?
Yep. And one of the things that I have found through our group is that when you do make it a good, safe space for the people who aren't used to being social like that to go ahead and play that character, if you see the wheels turning, don't stop them, don't rush them.
Mhm.
Let the wheels turn. Let them come up with what they're going to say if they're actually trying to come up with what they're going to say. Let the wheels turn.
Yes,
And
because
if
like you said, going back to skating tirade, when my character did it the first time, I was like, I've never done a diss like this before, so I was just thinking like, okay, maybe this or this. And then when I finished, you were all like, wow, that was good.
yes, yes, your skating tirades for your character are legendary.
And that was entirely like, oh, what am I saying? I don't know. This sounds right. So maybe I'll try this.
And so I'm not going to penalize anybody if they're actually trying to do it. I'm not going to rush them because that is going to short circuit them.
Yes.
And I'm also if they try and they ultimately say, "You know what? I'm sorry. I can't come up with anything. I'm sorry." Totally fine.
Totally
Totally
get it.
fine.
What are you trying to
What's the
do?
yeah, what are you trying to do? And then they'll tell me. It's like, "Okay, great. That's going to be that's going to be more a negotiation than a charm or a deception. So let's roll your negotiation. Now, since it is against another player or another character, an NPC, rather than a set difficulty, this is going to be an opposed check. And here's what your difficulty is."
Yeah, and that can work just as well. Basically, engineering social encounters, but also realizing social encounters are not just people just having eloquent conversations. It's a totally different facet where someone may be talking, someone may be doing something behind the scenes, but it all adds to the result of the social encounter. And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be Shakespearean. It can just be, I am trying to do this, basically just describe in third person what your character is going to do. That can still work for us. The only thing that doesn't work for us if you just say, I'm doing this and you roll. And I'm just like,
I'm
what
going
does
to
that do to
deceive
me?
them. I'm going to deceive them. My deception is this, and I'm going to roll now. Here's my result. I succeeded.
What do I do with that? I can just say, great, you deceived them. And
You deceived them. They now think that you really do have a stick of gum to give them when you don't.
yes, it's like, you don't give me anything to work with. I don't really have anything to work with you. It's like, okay, you deceived them that, I don't know, that door to the right is not oiled well, so it creaks when you open it.
And where I was starting to go with talking about our group too, before I kind of sidetracked myself, is that I've seen that players who may start off uncomfortable with being the social type character, if they find that character that really clicks with them, and as the group, you are welcoming and enabling of them becoming that social character, then as that campaign goes on, they're going to come out of that shell a little bit because you've all shown that you are welcoming this change, this growth,
Yeah,
this experimentation with the character.
yeah, and I've seen that. Best thing I can think of is Lawrence and Jewel of Yavin with Nellie the exploding hamster, basically, to where it worked so well. He brought another rendition into another campaign because he liked it so much.
Yep. And it is having fun basically playing a cartoon character in D&D.
yes. Well, haven't really myself and Julia, but I haven't really done kind of like a speedster, just very kind of like simple childlike person before. So I just made truck was like, okay, we're gonna try this, and then everyone loved them.
And like I said, I channeled my inner Bugs Bunny to play Jackson.
Kind of a Jackson with a Roger Rabbit in certain situations too.
kinda, kinda. And it was just a lot of fun. Although probably the character that I have had the most fun playing in any of our games is still, and you weren't in this campaign, but I know that you've heard about it. But the Age of Rebellion Special Missions Group campaign, where I was a spy.
Yes, your many
And
times of using the signature ability.
well, not even just the signature ability, but the spy was a genuine triple agent. And okay, not gonna lie. I said that I borrow characters from other media to get inspiration, although the character was cast as Tom Hiddleston when I cast him. The inspiration for the character is, have you ever seen Atomic Blonde?
a
Charlize
long a
Theron.
long time ago. It's been a hot minute.
So the inspiration for the character was Charlize Theron's character in Atomic Blonde, which you I want to give a spoiler alert for everyone listening for a movie that has been out for probably close to 10 years, if not more so. So,
Spoilers.
um, but spoiler alert, you've been duly warned while I rambled a spoiler alert. She's a triple agent. In the movie, we're introduced to her as an MI6 agent. Near the end of the movie, it's revealed that and this is all taking place during the story takes place literally at the time that the Berlin Wall comes down. So we're introduced to her as an MI6 agent being debriefed about the mission.
Mhm.
And part of the mission is there's a double agent in Berlin that has gotten a hold of, or in Berlin, there is a list of all of the undercover agents for every agency out there. And she has to get it before a double agent gets it. Well, then near the end of the movie, she then meets with the Russian agency that we've seen members of throughout the movie, and we're told that she's the double agent. And the KGB then proceeds to, like, we need to tie up loose ends, so they're going to eliminate her. She takes out the agents that are in the room, and then heads to an airport and gets on a plane with the CIA director that was in her debriefing at MI6, and we find out that she's really a CIA agent who was undercover in both MI6 and the KGB.
Yeah, I'm an
And
agent of an
so
agent of an agent.
so my character was a triple agent like that. Really worked for rebel intelligence, but was a genuine member of imperial intelligence as part of his cover, and the empire sent him into the Hutt cartels as part
Yes.
of his cover. So the Hutt cartel end got jettisoned pretty quickly, but I was still doing double agent stuff. And a lot of the things that I did sprung out of the role play of that, of the social aspect of it. Nick ran one session that was basically inspired by Apocalypse Now. And this small village is about to be attacked by the Empire, but Colonel Kurtz effectively wasn't going to do anything to fight them off. It's going to let them come in and just get our group. At which point I sidled up and used my social skills to convince him to have his people help us fight off the Empire. He did. While the battle's going on, I sidled back up to him, put my arm around him, and I was like, I knew that you would make the right choice. and then I cut his throat. And
Yes, you
and
remember that story.
and everybody else in the group is like, what? You, it's like, I hate to, trot out a trope, but it's what my character would do.
Yes.
And and I introduced him by saying he does wet work with no qualms. So, I if ever something like this is going to derail things, I trust Nick to rein me in and make me do things as a check where there is a possibility of failure.
Yes, or what was I about to think about? Oh, yes, I remember. And just also loving to play a character. I remember when we were still doing the now in a hiatus Galaxy Edge campaign, that the character I made, I went into a different direction because I mostly play either like I play mostly good characters, but then this time I was like, no, I want to play like a bad character, like a genuinely evil character. So I made up this woman named Zelra, and I was like, okay, what do I want her personality to be? So I did a mixture of parts of the Joker, specifically Mark Hamill's performance, and you'll know this because of the boy, but Tyrion Kalos from the Ruby show, basically they're basically chaos incarnate. They love violence and chaos and destruction because it just basically makes them feel good. But I want that love for chaos that Tyrion had, but a more composed can still have social encounters like the Joker can. But you say one bad thing, she may just pull out a gun or a lightsaber and just cut you in half, just because you're like, yeah, you're boring now. And so I made her like that, even to where she has like a Sith spirit in her head, giving her like schizophrenia, basically. She has a broken mind. And through the campaign, I just played her like that. She was always happy and bubbly, but she'd be like, okay, I stabbed this guy with manticore venom. And Nick, and remember when I did that, Nick's like, oh. It's like, oh, you see this guy do this and convulse and that. He's like, oh, they did it. They went that way. Or when Nick's like, yeah, we're looking for a seed of rage. And I'm like, oh, really? And my character's
Oh,
like,
you are you?
ooh, you are you? I could do a lot with that.
Well, and that's the thing that I liked about that. That's why that spy is one of my favorite characters still. It was so against type for the kind of characters that I typically play.
I totally agree with
I'm
that.
like Star Wars, I'm 95% of the time I am a staunch good guy. Every so often, probably about half of that time it's a Jedi adjacent character, or at the very least, it's a good guy. This person was very much another bit of inspiration that I took for the character was the operative from Serenity, where he's like, I'm fighting to make a world, to make a galaxy a better place that there's no place for me in.
Yeah, it's basically I want a world where monsters like I am don't exist.
Yeah. There is no place for me in this better galaxy that I'm trying to make. And I'm fine with that. And so all of the horrible things that I do are worth it so that people like me don't exist.
Yes, or I like to play myself. I also like to play good characters, want to help people. Even when we're playing more like we're criminals, I still be like, yeah, I'll steal and cheat and con, but I'm not a jerk. I'm going to be nice to people and try to help my crew or my people or even the orphan on the street that my character adopted. But no, I just want to feel. I want to know what it's like playing a character who's just purely selfish. I am out there for my own needs. I'm out there for my own gains. I'm gonna do what makes me feel good. I don't care what happens to anybody else.
Yep, definitely. And to an extent, too, a way to work with social encounters, it's kind of hinted at in the title of the episode. And all of us at work these days get some kind of training on people trying to social engineer us.
Oh yes, I'm in a job where I literally talk to people on the phone. Psychology and word choice and all of that is integral to what I do.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, the on the occasions now that I interact with our customers, they're escalated. So it has a negative connotation, but if you think I'm not choosing my words and phrasing and approach in a way to socially engineer them, then you're you're crazy because
Yes, or
I'm trying to de-escalate them and get the solution that I'm supposed to abide by in the first place and that our employees are supposed to abide by in the first place that has the customer escalated to begin with.
yes, or when I play like criminal manipulative characters who can talk their way around, I found that when my company does their annual like fraud or identity theft training where they talk about social engineering causes most of the breaches, I take inspiration from that in a good way. I'm
Mhm.
not tricking anybody, but in a good way because like, okay, so that's how it's done in real life. Well, let me engineer it for when I'm playing my character who's conning or trying to convince people to do what he wants. And I found that it works at times.
Yep, let me tweak this to fit the setting of the game that I'm running or that I'm playing if I'm playing a character that does that kind of thing.
Yes. Or or like you say, find an actor or a scene from a movie or show you like and just dig into it, dissect it, and use it towards how you're acting your character.
Yep. And it's like Nick tried multiple times to get a particular Star Wars campaign off the ground that I was a I was Star-Lord. There are no two ways about it. I was Star-Lord.
But who was
And
Groot?
Xander,
I can see it.
he was an IG assassin droid, but it was basically our Groot.
I could see that, especially even though this might have happened when you guys were playing this specifically if he was teenage Groot, like I am Groot, playing his little game.
No, he was more first movie
Yeah.
Groot. And and Stephanie was also an Ewok like you were in Jewel of Yavin, but she was an Ewok slicer. Her Ewok slicer could understand basic but couldn't speak it, so had a data pad with sound clips loaded up. Basically had a soundboard, and that's how he communicated. But he was a good slicer.
It's like, yeah, I can't speak your language, but I can speak that computer's language.
Yep, pretty much. Pretty much. So and the thing is, once when Nick finally got the campaign going and it still ended up petering out, we were having trouble getting getting a real feel for the campaign. We were kind of struggling. And then there was one session where just the way everything lined up, we fell into that Guardians of the Galaxy mold. And we're like, "Oh, this is it. This is how it works. These are how these characters work." And so it did, and that was less a social. Although I used the social aspect of the character as much as I used the shooting aspect of the character, because he was Star Lord, legendary outlaw.
Who? He's like, oh, come on, man.
Oh man, but yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do with social encounters to make them more than just rolling dice. If all they are is rolling dice, I find that bores me to tears.
Yeah, it's like, why aren't you just, I don't know, playing a video game then?
Yep,
You get the same thing. At least you get cutscenes where you don't have to do anything.
right. So I think we've touched on most of our thoughts on making social encounters like that. Was there anything that you wanted to
I've had one more because this is
go for
something
it?
I just thought about it. Like we talked about engineering social encounters, but how about dealing with one suddenly pops up? Because I know in Star Wars with the charmer or their diplomatic tree, there's a signature ability where you can turn an actual combat encounter into a social encounter. It hasn't, I don't believe it's happened yet in our groups, but there can be a time where you can use that signature ability to turn combat into a social encounter. So I was wondering, we've talked about planning it or kind of setting it up. What do we do when it's just like sudden the player's like, wait, I want to do this and I want to talk it out. You're just like, that's not how I planned this going, but give me
Well,
your best
that
shot.
so for me, that would be where the movie nerd in me would come out, and I would immediately start diving into my internal movie library. When has something similar to this happened in a movie or a TV show? Um, or even if a situation exactly like this or super close to this hasn't happened in something that I can think of, that's where casting my NPCs or my PC comes in. It's like, okay, how would they approach this? How would Khan, if going back to our Far Orbit project and that Vice Admiral, because I'm sure at this point your character has the signature ability that you're talking about, doesn't he?
I think I went with a different one, but I thought
Okay.
about getting it before.
So
But
if your
a
character,
situation actually happened when we did the Rebel Yell Far Orbit crossover, and the Admiral came to kind of like try and arrest us. I don't know if it was, I think it was with Dante's character that did one of your spy things and say, hey, something worse is happening over there. You should go get it.
yep, yep. Now, if your character had that signature ability that you were talking about that turns combat into a social encounter, as co-GM of that campaign, what I would probably do at that point, if I couldn't think of a specific scenario where I've seen it happen, I would go back to, okay, this admiral is Khan. So how would Khan approach it? Now, Khan might take that as a challenge because Khan believes that he has, it's rather than your character, we're talking about Captain Kirk here. Khan thinks that he is superior to Kirk in every way, including in intellect. So Khan would take this as a challenge, like, okay, let me outsmart Kirk, let me out talk Kirk. And at that point, we would just riff until such time as, okay, we've riffed back and forth. We have established through that riffing boosts and setbacks. Now let's get the dice pool. Who's going to roll? And I always defer to having the players roll. So the admiral's or discipline is the difficulty based on your approach that you've had in the conversation. Here is the skill that you are going to use: charm, deception, negotiation, whatever it is. And here's your difficulty. You're going to take this many boosts because of the argument that you took, the approach that you took, and you're going to get this many setbacks because of these factors on the part of the admiral. But let's play a little tennis back and forth as much as we can to determine what those are going to be, and then the outcome is going to be based on the roll. And in a case like that, I would say that a failure would be a failure.
Yes, it's like failure. Well, we tried. Or like
Yeah,
Han said, boring conversation anyway.
yes. Luke, we're going to have company. But yeah, there's something to be said there, and if you know your character as a player really well, and if you have a decent grasp on the NPC as the GM, then even those sudden pop-up social encounters like that should be pretty fun, unless everyone is having a brain lock day.
Yes. And it can even make a comedic moment where they start talking and the other goon's like, what is happening right now? Thought we were going to kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can have that be the reaction of the underlings that are around. Boss, you wanted us to kill them, and now you're just trying to talk them to death? What's up with that?
He is not getting the last word on me.
He tasks me. He tasks me, and I shall have him.
Boss, I could just shoot him.
Well, I mean, at that point, it becomes the RPG social encounter version of the movie cliche where you know, 10 ninjas are attacking one person and they attack one at a time.
Yeah.
But no, that was a good good addition there. What else do you have, if anything?
Kind of the inverse. And kind of a failure type of thing. When does a social encounter get acceptable to be like, okay, now you're in combat?
I would say that kind of falls on what I said about the end of that social encounter that suddenly pops up. If you have a social encounter going on that there is a genuine consequence of failure, you know, failing the encounter isn't going to put the game in a logjam, or even if they were meant to succeed with this social encounter, again, another one can come up to get them in the direction that they want to go. If it's going to be narratively interesting for failure in that social check, when you finally say, okay, now it's time to roll dice. If it's a failure, that's when it turns into combat.
Fair. And then, all right. I think that was all I wanted to talk about in addition. Anything you got?
Yeah. No, I think we got it all. And we're not going to be picking on Nick tonight because Nick's not here. We just wish him the best of luck in getting the squirrel out of the house.
Yes, he did say he was going to get his traps, and he's probably setting that up. He's at least said he's got the squirrel trapped somewhere to where it cannot get out. But now he's just have to set up the traps, and hopefully he has enough peanut butter to lure it in.
Hopefully so. So we will just skip right to the point of the show where I say, check out our website at howwerollgaming.com, and there you'll find information about our current campaigns, the podcast archive, and links to our merch store and all of our social media accounts.
Yes, you can also directly support the show through our Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/howwerollgaming, and you'll see our different membership tiers starting at just $2 a month, with special recognition on our Discord server and higher tiers giving you on-air credit and discounts on our merch store.
And finally, if you have any questions you'd like us to answer, topics you'd like us to cover, or even submit your own RPG glory story, shoot us an email at podcast@howwerollgaming.com.
Yes, sirree. That's the end of the episode.
That's the end of the episode, so we hope to see you again next time. Until then, as always, I'm Daryl.
And I'm Robert.
And this is How We Roll.